Hey guys, this is Subutai Khan, and welcome to another battle analysis from Shogun 2. I know I put this series on hold for a little bit, but I've done a bunch of other fights with Vinu, so I decided to show some of them here, and we'll get through them we'll get through them when we can. I'm just busy with other things, other games, other communities, and I'm gonna be pretty busy at university soon, so hopefully I can get these out as quickly as I can. I think I always say that I'll get them out quickly, but then I don't. Obviously, I'm not as invested in this channel as I am others. Maybe that'll change, but we will see. Either way, there's one particular battle that I want to show you that can best be described as a clusterfuck. And I know YouTube doesn't like that word, but I mean, how else do you describe this battle? Um, Obviously, I'm not making any money off of these, so I don't really care that I said that probably within the first minutes of the video or so. It's not a big deal. But I mean, that what else? Whatever word do you use for this battle? It gets very hectic really quickly because Vineyard gets way better at his favorite tactic, and that's just going in with his little bonsai charge and just wrecking havoc. So let's go slow motion. I can't really pause and look over the battle, I don't think. Yes, I can. All right. Excellent. So I played the Oda clan. I often like to do pike and shot style armies, so that has not changed. But this time I did not go with the Takeda. I changed things up a little bit. My cavalry is pretty standard, just Yari cavalry, 2 units over there, and then my general. And it looks like I have. This has been a while, so I don't remember like every little detail, but it looks like I didn't bring much more cavalry than that. Obviously, I believe my infantry would suffice for any anti-cavalry duties beyond these 2 units of Yari cavalry. And then, as far as my skirmishing, I have Oda, Matchlock, Ashigaru. And as you can see, they form my skirmish line for the most part. But I also have these bow warrior monks. I actually usually use bow samurai, but I decided to use bow warrior monks. And I think the reasoning here is pretty simple. They're more accurate and they have more range. Whether they're better than bow samurai is still debatable because bow samurai have better armor and probably better defensive melee stats, and their offensive melee stats could be better, but they're not the worst. So who's better kind of depends, but having more range is really nice for supporting these guns. They can reach out a bit farther and engage the enemy a bit more silently, that kind of thing. So I think they're just useful to support guns with. That's how the Japanese would have used bows too. Obviously, they preferred the gun historically as they figured out the gun was superior, but sometimes the bow is really nice for suppressing the enemy and just getting a volume of shots downrange. So they still could serve a niche in the Japanese armies and they did not completely disappear. But as far as my melee line, essentially I've got Oda, long Yari Ashigaru. So you can think of these guys as your pikemen, and in other Total War games, that is exactly what they do here. They have very long Yari spears, pikes essentially, and they can form a really powerful Yari wall that enables them to take on samurai. Um, One issue they do have, of course, is that their morale is not the best. It's not low, I don't think. It's not low for an Ashigaru unit, but if you compare them to samurai and monks, they do not stick around for quite as long. So that is an issue they can certainly run into, and we'll see how that plays out. My goal is essentially to get Vinu to charge me down the middle because I know he likes doing that, and the hope is my pikes will just absorb the charge as usual and win. But I also have this Katana Samurai unit, just one Katana Samurai unit, because evidently in this case I wanted to go with a really cheap army. So like all this infantry is cheap, these guns are all cheap, and even the cavalry. I mean, it's a bit expensive, but it's not particularly expensive cavalry. And my general is also just a regular general. I did not decide to bring Oda Nobunaga because usually it's not worth it to bring the daimyo as your general. I don't think, unless you just happen to have that money to spare and you have nothing else to spend it on, which is not very likely. Because I think even with that money, you probably want to upgrade some of your units. But anyway, before we continue with the battle, let's have a look at Vinu's army, because he brought the Uesugi, which is a very formidable clan and a classic enemy of the Oda clan, and obviously the later Sengoku period. Constant thorn in the side of the Takeda as well, very famous rivalry there. But He also brought some matchlock Ashigaru, as you can see here, and as well as that, he brought a bunch of katana samurai. So you can see the theme of this army here. He's going pure melee strength, not so much concerned about countering cavalry with these sword units, but he wants to blast through my line. That is his goal, kind of opposite of what my goal is. And then he's got these Uesugi warrior monks, which they're kind of a squishy unit, to be honest. They don't have that much armor, but the Uesugi can bring some really good warrior monks, and the warrior monks still have very good melee stats overall, and they have an ability called War Cry, which lowers the morale of the opposition. Their lack of armor is definitely made up for when it comes to like their other stats and whatnot. So they're not a weak unit by any means. It's just their lack of armor can mean their melee defense is a bit lacking, and their defense against arrows is a bit lacking. As far as guns, it makes little difference, but armor saves can help you a little bit against guns, but only units like the bulletproof samurai really can make use of that. But yeah, that's Vinu's army. It's very concentrated. You can see what he wants to do is just blast his way through. So we're gonna see him try that now. Let me just fast forward a little bit to when the engagement starts kicking off. This is a pretty quick battle. As you can see, I do advance forward. I don't just sit still, but I do want to play a bit more defensive because these pikemen are not a very offensive sort of unit. So I want Vinu to attack me, essentially. But I do move slowly, and here at last minute, I'm like, I'm not exactly sure what the reasoning was, but I do move these bow warrior monks to this side instead. Maybe because I thought these monks were a bit more squishy, so the archers would do better here, which is sensible. But I'm really cutting it close here, moving them last second to get into position. They can also be a good unit for harassing guns, but evidently my goal was to attack the monks over here. There are more samurai over here that we didn't quite see. The trees were hiding them, because keep in mind, it's essentially this replays from my perspective, so if his units are hidden, they're hidden. But you can see I've moved my cavalry to the left side, so I do plan to deploy them at an opportune time, hopefully when his units slam into me. The first shots are actually fired by the guns, just the archers are in behind. And his units just carry on marching forward. He does not care that I'm firing all these volleys into him. And to be fair, it's very unlikely that this line of guns is going to stop his whole army. And these guys aren't firing. I really should have moved them such that they would fire. But evidently I wasn't paying so much attention to that. And I actually had bull warrior monks. And these guys finally start firing. The bull warrior monks are also shooting at these guys, but they have just enough armor to carry on going. And these katana samurai are definitely not going to be stopped by such things. I think his goal was to get some close range volleys before he gets the men charging in, which is fair, but I think the main mistake, I'm going to pause here, as you can see he's charging right in, this is going to happen really quickly. I think the main fault with this strategy was that he had his men in a very thick line, at least as far as the guns, he had a thick line. And the problem is in this game, if you have too many ranks with your guns, you can't get all of the men to fire at once. You can see the thinner line of my guns is better for just getting all of the ranks to fire. In this game, you can only get like the first 2 ranks to fire. In real life, you can get like 4 ranks to fire if your units are really disciplined. 3 units is probably the standard though, but either way, the game is less forgiving than real life, and so the thick units actually just make you a bigger target. There are some situations where thickening them up when you're marching is good, but in this situation it probably would have been better to extend the line as much as possible. But Vinu is not so much planning to win this through gunnery, he's planning to win this through a melee charge. So, in come the katana samurai. He has no spear, like cheap spear infantry, he's going all in with quality. And he will crash into these lines head on. Even these guns actually end up charging in. I don't think he meant to, he probably clicked on them by mistake, which is something that I've done before too. In these battles for sure. And you can see he's planning on just breaking through of sheer mass. And you can see the pikes are taking some casualties. The katana samurai here, for example, have lost a lot of men. and he's even charged his general in to back these men up to try and disrupt my formation. I deployed a Katana Samurai immediately, sensing that something is going very wrong here. The pikes are not keeping the men at bay to the extent that I want. They're essentially able to fight these samurai and these monks one for one, but the morale is where they crack. They do not have the same morale as these elite units. And as the formation gets disrupted, these men will fall, despite having longer spears. And so the long area Ashigaru are not doing as well as I was hoping, and I think we actually kind of missed. You might have seen it, but I wasn't like paying attention to it. But I do deploy my cavalry, and we charge the infantry in the rear. But these guns actually are able to deliver a volley, so my cavalry suffer a lot. And they aren't able to stop the warrior monks in particular, who have a bonus against cavalry. But eventually I do get these cavalry into the guns, so that does help relieve some pressure. But you can see the whole center of my army is just retreating, and at this point it looks like the battle is lost already. It looks like Vinu has won this. My guns are in disarray. I have some units coming back, and it just seems to be over. He unfortunately moved these guns into my spears by mistake. I think if Vinu managed these gunners better, he would have done better this battle for sure. These men come back as well. They actually haven't taken any casualties, and that's why in this case. Again, Yari cavalry fighting. My general is still alive. He has not taken any casualties, and he's trying to rally these men. And that's the importance of keeping your general alive. Sometimes you can get men who have not shattered, like these guys have, for example. They shattered. But if men have not shattered, your general can sometimes rally them. And having your general remain alive is very important. Bow warrior monks have also come back, it looks like, and I'm going to try and deploy them. But here's the problem with what's happened in this battle for Vinu. Yes, he's broken through, but look at the units that have come back. And I actually have some cavalry still, but they're not that numerous. I'm probably going to suicide charge them if I recall, because there's really not much point in keeping them alive at this point. They can just cause a disruption in his force. But he has his forces concentrated to such an extent that I'm able to actually start surrounding him. And keep in mind, my general is still alive, so these men are still willing to fight. Some of them are probably really concerned about what's happened, but look at that. I have some 200 strength Ashigaru units, and this essentially means they haven't participated in the battle. They are on the wings. So yes, he's crashed through, but now I can start encircling him. It still looks very bad for me. It doesn't look like a winnable battle, but I do try to fight it out. I form up these men into spear lines the best I can and begin encircling them. And any guns that come back, I am sure to try deploying them. Let's continue the battle. This battle, again, goes really fast, so sometimes we will have to pause to explain what's going on. And here Vinu was trying to hunt down these guns. I think he should have used his general to do that, though. And now my missile infantry starts engaging these enemies. And you can see many of these men are winded. And I'm not sure why it's slow motion. That's really bizarre. There we go. That looks a bit better. Sometimes Total War games are like that. And these guns have come back. That will matter. These bow monks, unfortunately, are being charged by all of these men, it looks like. So I start trying to run them back. But the spearmen have successfully formed up. And these spearmen have also formed up, these pikemen, I should say, and these guns are going to try pursuing his army as we continue encircling it. He still has an avenue out, so he's not completely surrounded by any means, but he does need to be careful. He's used his general to catch up to these bow warrior monks, and they will not really be participating in the battle that much further, and these deadly melee units are gonna crash against my men, but unfortunately in pursuing the bow monks, he gets up against my pikes of his general, who have a really strong bonus against cavalry, and at this point his general will die, and that will be a decisive moment in the battle. As you can see, though, the morale of these men is just not the same as the units they're encountering, so it's still risky. But I've got to try something. And the fact that his general died somewhere in here is going to be absolutely decisive. It's going to give my men the courage to continue fighting, and it's going to be a severe morale shock even to these samurai and bow, and I should say just warrior monk units. They're not necessarily bow units. These guys eventually rout, but you can see these units here, they've actually suffered quite a bit. 67 out of 160, 69 out of 160. 129, these Katana Samurai are doing better. 113, 70. A lot of these units have taken over half their men as casualties, and that is going to prove to be a big problem. These men at 99, and they will take more casualties, however, they will also reach many of these guns, so it will be a bit of a problem for those guns, and he will win this battle. You can see there's a battle here on the left, my left that is, as these men begin retreating. But my guns begin opening up on his flank here. Some units got isolated, and this is the big problem. Not only have I started encircling him a little bit and getting on his flanks, but his units are starting to get unorganized. These monks should do fine in melee, but the problem is I've got some spears nearby, and my general is actually going to start taking part in the fight as well. He's got to keep these men inspired. I do not have any spears to protect these men, so all they can do is stand still and just shoot as many of these samurai down as they can. That they will do, and the samurai are starting to get a morale shock, and my general tries to seal the deal, running over some of his own men. And of course the announcer is very terrified of the idea of me just sending my general in there. But I've got to use every unit I have at this point, and he's not dead, so hopefully I'm hoping for a morale advantage. And actually these units do come back. They're very depleted, but this unit at least comes back, and this unit does as well. And this ties up two of his units over there. They're effectively out of the battle as far as this side is concerned. My general starts running down units that are not paying attention to him. Vinu was not able to respond to the cavalry charge. But these monks will still do pretty well against the general. I've got to be a bit careful. If the general gets surrounded, he could still die. And these samurai, again, isolated and not able to catch up to my guns, and so they start getting shot down. And just for sheer attrition, you can see eventually Vinu is starting to lose this battle. Here I managed to flank his monk unit and start shooting them in the back. And these katana samurai have not been able to respond to that. And I think this is where things start crumbling. Essentially, command and control is crumbling. The general is dead. Vinu is struggling to deal with all these units that I have surrounding his men. And so a big portion of his army here is completely surrounded and unable to escape. He tries to charge these guns with these monks. And that's a fight he should, in theory, win, but they're so low in numbers that he runs into problems eventually as these spears come in to seal the deal. And you can see the battle has frozen. But I do actually win this battle, and I hope you'll believe me. My general is alive. These monk units have suffered a lot. Some of the samurai units are doing okay, but ultimately his men start chain routing at this point as army losses take its toll. It's a very close battle, but yeah, this replay is unfortunately glitchy, it looks like, so we can't see the final moments of the battle. So we will quit the replay at this point, but I hope you'll believe me that I did win. You can see the actual battle itself on Vinu's channel, if that's still not convincing enough for you. And the victory music as well confirms that I did indeed win, I believe, so hopefully that's convincing enough. But it was a really intense battle. I really enjoyed this one, and this is really the battle where Vinu is starting to challenge me a lot, and he's really perfected his tactics, so really exciting stuff. And I hope to show you next time the battle where Vinu actually manages to beat me, because that was also an exciting battle. But this one I thought I was lost. I thought there was just no way I'm coming back, but I managed to rally the men on the flanks and force Vinu to sort of blob himself up and get surrounded, and that was really key. Those guns were just playing an absolutely key role. I wish I could show you the statistics, but unfortunately the game just won't let me see them, so we're gonna have to leave it at that. But thanks for watching this, guys. It was a really fun battle, and I hope to capture some more fun battles that I had with Vinu, because we've done a ton of them, and he was playing Art of War audiobook during all of these, so he was prepared for sure, and he had some ideas, so it was cool to see him try to bring those ideas into action. Anyway, GG's to Vinu, some really great games, and I'll see you guys next time.